Solo Leveling by Gong. Epilogue 2.
Hello, Mrs. Cha. Oh, hello.
Hein nervously entered the office of the director of the kindergarten. She and Jean Wu had been worried because Suho, despite already being 5 years old, had never interacted with kids his own age. Exactly a week after starting at a kindergarten near their home, Hein got a call to report to the office. She was worried that something had happened to Suho, or that Suho himself had done something wrong. The director escorted Hein inside. The two women sat across from each other. Hein looked gloomy, like a dark cloud during rainy season. The director, a middle-aged woman, understood very well how Hein was feeling right now. She tried to speak in the gentlest voice possible in order to reassure Hein.
There is no need to worry. The thing is, we just wanted to ask you a few things. Oh, okay.
The stone-faced Hein nodded as the director pushed a sketchbook toward her.
Here, could you please take a look at these drawings?
As Hein picked up the sketchbook, the director continued.
Suho drew these.
A cute child's drawing of an ant was on the page. Why was the director showing this to Hein? She couldn't figure it out.
What's wrong with this drawing?
The director hesitated a bit. Then she spoke with a little sigh.
Suho's teacher had asked the class to draw a friend.
Oh! Hein took a second look and noticed that the ant stood on 2 feet. It hit her that this was no ordinary ant, but rather Marshall Baru.
There are more drawings on the next page. The teacher asked if Suho had other friends.
Hein turned the page. There was a drawing of a shadowy human-looking figure with a red mane on the top of his head, who was holding an object that was clearly a sword. Igris. Hein placed a hand on her forehead as she realized who the drawing portrayed. Igris looked like a trustworthy knight to the people who knew him. But what about those who didn't? Hein could feel a headache coming on. What followed were drawings of Belian holding the extending sword and Fong performing magic. Her headache seemed to grow with each drawing. As Hein silently went through the pictures, the director misread her facial expression and grew worried.
The next one is how Suho drew his family.
Hein turned to the next page. There were countless black figures behind 2 people who she assumed were her husband and her. Since Suho had been around shadow soldiers his entire life, he considered them family as well. This is what we look like to Suho. Touched, Hein's nose tingled as she looked at Suho's warm depiction of the shadow soldiers. On the other hand, Suho's teachers had found the drawings confusing and wondered if there was something they should be aware of with Suho. The director wondered the same, which was why she had arranged this meeting with Hein. With a serious look on her face, the director continued.
The last page is on the topic of home. This is the main reason I've called you here.
What did he draw this time? Hein nervously turned to the last page. It was a drawing of a small and ordinary-looking house. The problem was that the land it was on was entirely black. More than 70% of the page had been colored in.
We have taken care of many children, but we have never seen any child depict their friends and family like this.
The director calmly pointed at the black part.
When Suho's teacher asked him why he drew the ground like this, he said his friends, family, and his huge dad were there.
Huge dad. It sounded strange, but Hein understood what Suho had meant in drawing this picture.
Do you have any idea why he would draw such pictures?
Hein couldn't tell her the truth, so she shook her head.
I thought as much.
The director nodded, as if she understood Hein's position. At first, she had even suspected that Suho might have been abused at home, but they found no evidence of this, and the boy was always so happy. Sometimes, it just so happened that there would be a kid who saw the world in their own way.
Maybe Suho has a special talent for art.
Convinced of this, the director smiled. Because she knew the real reason, Hayne perked up and smiled awkwardly.
"Oh, yes, yes."
She was relieved that it wasn't a big problem. However, the drawings weren't all that was on the director's agenda today. She hesitated, as she was unsure whether to bring something up with Hayne or not. She came to a decision and looked even more serious than she did when presenting the drawings.
"Mrs. Cha, actually, there is one more thing I need to tell you."
At the Violent Crimes Investigation Unit at the Central Police Station, excited voices rang throughout the office following an announcement of promotions.
"Congratulations, sir! Congratulations! Shouldn't you be treating us to a drink, Captain Sung?"
Jin Woo was mobbed by his team members and managed to escape only thanks to his partner, Se-won.
"Let's go, Jin Woo." "Sure."
Jin Woo was met with words of congratulations all around him as he left the station with a smile on his face. Se-won, now a veteran detective himself, also congratulated Jin Woo.
"Congratulations,"
Jin Woo replied with a smile. As they walked side by side, Se-won scanned the area before cautiously moving closer to Jin Woo.
"So, why did you accept the promotion this time? You've been refusing the higher-ups even though they kept bugging you all this time."
Jin Woo gave Se-won the side eye as to ask why he wanted to know, then replied with a chuckle.
"Because I didn't have any more reasons to refuse."
Se-won laughed at Jin Woo's facetious answer.
"Wow, okay."
The reply sounded like a joke, but Jin Woo had been genuine, and Se-won knew that as well. Just like any other job, as detectives ranked up, they ended up getting chained to their desks. Jin Woo had wanted to continue doing field work, and whenever possible, his superiors, especially Chief Jinchul Woo, had respected his wishes. However, that couldn't last forever. After everything he had achieved, Jin Woo had run out of excuses to keep from being promoted, and he finally had no choice but to accept one.
"Don't you have any higher aspirations? Like a higher position or making more money?"
Money, huh? Would Se-won believe that at one point, Jin Woo had made more money than the largest law firms in the country at a younger age than Se-won was now? Jin Woo thought back to when he'd run a gin guild with Jinho, but kept it to himself. Talk about a nostalgic memory. He wasn't lost in his sea of memories for long. Before he got into the car with Se-won, Jin Woo had to answer his phone. It was a call from Hayne. Jin Woo went home earlier than usual after receiving Hayne's call. He chuckled after seeing Suho's drawings.
"I didn't know our son was such an artist."
Out of Suho's drawings, Baru's picture caught his eye. No other 5-year-old kid could draw an ant this well. Jin Woo wiped a proud smile off his face when Hayne glared at him.
"Ahem. Well then."
Hayne couldn't help her giggle when she saw her husband's quick change of attitude. She spoke to him as if she was talking to herself.
"This is no laughing matter. Look at the last page." "The last page?"
It was Suho's picture of his home.
"According to Suho, his huge dad lives in this black land. Do you know? Why are you laughing?" "Oh, nothing. I just remembered something funny."
Jin Woo laughed so hard he had tears in his eyes, as he realized that was how Suho referred to the statue of the monarch located in the center of the realm of eternal rest. He closed the sketchbook as he wiped his tears off his face. Jin Woo's expression made it clear that he didn't think this was a big deal. However, Hayne quietly sighed and told Jin Woo what the director of the kindergarten had told her.
"Apparently, kids are afraid of Suho."
Jin Woo's smile dropped slightly.
"They are?"
Looking worried, Hayne nodded and continued her explanation.
"Although he never bothers or yells at other kids, they act differently when he's nearby."
Jin Woo couldn't laugh this off. He stood frozen, his smile completely gone now. His worries were coming true. Kids were more innocent than adults. Not only were their thoughts immature, but they were innocently perceptive. While adults could control their emotions with logical thinking, kids relied more on their instincts. So they were probably trying to avoid Suho because they could sense the shadow of death looming over him. The power of the Shadow Monarch. The only reason the power hadn't led to disaster was because Jinwoo was the one wielding it. It was a horrifying weapon created by a god from another world and concealed inside his most loyal subject with the intention of using it to destroy everything he had created. Now this power had been unintentionally passed to Suho, and it grew stronger every day. Suho wouldn't be able to lead a normal life. Until he could perfectly control his power, it would be necessary to suppress it. Jinwoo looked at the pictures hanging on the living room wall. Their wedding portrait was in the biggest frame, and many pictures of Suho hung on either side of it. Most of the boys' pictures were with shadow soldiers. In one picture, Suho was grinning from ear to ear, riding on Baru's shoulders and yanking his two antennae. There was a picture of Suho running away from Igris, who had volunteered to be his tutor. Another picture showed Suho fighting Bellion with his toy sword. There were so many others besides those. One by one, Jinwoo began sending them to his inventory in another dimension.
Honey, until Suho can live with other humans without any issue, I'm going to seal his power and his memories regarding the Shadow Soldiers.
Suho would have to learn how to coexist with humans instead of shadow soldiers. Until then, when the last picture was placed in inventory, Baru quietly rose from the shadows after finding out about Jinwoo's decision.
My king.
Jinwoo could sense that Baru treasured Suho like his own, but Jinwoo had made up his mind. Realizing he couldn't change his king's mind, Baru lowered his head. That was when Baru noticed the drawings. Jinwoo was holding the sketchbook toward Baru.
Is this?
Suho drew a picture of you. It was the greatest work of art Baru had ever seen. Tears welled in the ant's large eyes.
My king, may I say goodbye to the little master?
With Jinwoo's permission, Baru cautiously entered Suho's room. Creak. Suho was in a deep sleep, and his steady breaths were like soft, sweet music to Baru's ears. Baru quietly knelt on one knee so as not to disturb him.
My little lord, I bid you farewell on behalf of all the Shadow Soldiers.
His low voice seemed to permeate Suho's dream. The boy turned over and faced the direction the voice came from and began to talk in his sleep.
Boss Ant! Boss Ant!
Suho's pronunciation for the word "ant" was much better now than when he'd first started following Baru around. Baru gazed proudly upon Suho.
It was an honor to serve you, young master. Please stay in good health until next we meet.
Baru kissed the top of Suho's hand dangling over the edge of the bed. As he got up, the soldiers who had gathered beneath Baru's feet said their goodbyes to him as well.
Young master, please study hard even when I'm not with you. Please be healthy, young master. W.I.
With that, Baru turned around. Jinwoo nodded and approached Suho silently. He tucked him in his blanket before placing his hand on Suho's forehead. Powerful magic flowed from Jinwoo's fingertips. When Suho opened his eyes, his abnormal powers and memories would be gone. Sweet dreams. Jinwoo kissed his son on the forehead as he slept like an angel. He then closed the door to Suho's room. Suho danced with ants, knights, and orcs in his dreams all throughout the night.